I'd like to introduce Jennifer from the United States, who uses LDN for Hashimoto's, Ankylosing Spondylitis, and Lyme disease. Thank you for joining us, Jennifer.
Hi, nice to be on your talk.
Okay, could you tell us how long ago it was when you first started to notice there was something wrong with you?
Well, I first noticed something in January of 1999. I had gotten what I thought was a regular flu. Ended up being sick for a week straight with a high fever, migraines, and it was probably one of the worst flus I've ever had in my life. And after that, I just didn't seem right. I was working full time, going to school 2 nights a week, playing roller hockey 3 nights a week, and it just didn't seem like I was recovering from this flu. So several weeks later, I had tried to play hockey again, and I couldn't even do a shift. And went back to the doctor, and they ran some tests and whatnot, and basically the only thing that came up was that I had kidney failure, which just showed out of the blue.
Wow.
And ended up, though, that from that point on, I was never the same. Whatever happened with that flu triggered something, and I was never the same. I had to stop playing hockey. I actually had to drop out of night school for college. Because I just had problems with fatigue and focusing, and it was really getting to be difficult. And then in the course of 14 years, I saw over 40 different doctors, had over 60 tests done, and they found some stuff, but they still weren't finding much, and my condition just kept going downhill, and I was just never the same again. And ended up being tested for Lyme before, and that came back negative. And they thought maybe it was connective tissue disease, other types of autoimmune diseases, Marfan syndrome. They looked at everything, and they did find several over time, which at first I didn't have, but over the years I did develop the Hashimoto's and the Ankylosing Spondylitis, and have been since tested and tested for two mutations of the MTHFR gene mutation, and along with several other things as well. And it ended up that I guess in about 2012 I had gone out to the Cleveland Clinic and saw a neurologist out there who recognized my autoimmune issues and put me on a gluten-free diet. And that actually helped. Within a month, my rheumatoid factor went from 70 down to 35, just going gluten-free. So definitely had a lot of inflammation problems going on. And even though my thyroid was still okay at the time, I was put on thyroid meds. They just figured it might help, although it didn't really do much for the fatigue. And in that time, I guess about maybe 2006 or so or earlier is when they tested, and I found I did have the Hashimoto's. But going back to 2012, with the doctor putting me on the diet, that did help a lot, but there were still issues still going on. I also had problems with chronic urethritis and just a lot of UTIs, and then it ended up that I would end up going to the ER and get tested, and they weren't going to give me antibiotics because my results were negative. There was no infection. So dealt with that for several years, and that was getting frustrating, and I was in a lot of pain. And then ended up going to a urologist, and in 60 seconds, light bulb went on, and he knew exactly what it was. He knew that there was an infection in the walls of the urethra. And ended up then, was put on antibiotics for that, and it really didn't do a whole lot. And I found out later in the summer of 2013 that I had I was going through periods of good and bad, and starting to have a lot of problems with the IBS issues, and things were just piling on and on and on, and still not getting any answers, and my health just kept getting worse over the years. And ended up in that summer then, I stepped on a nail and got a tetanus shot, and then within a month, that September, I got really sick and ended up with real cognitive problems, migraines. I couldn't walk right. I couldn't talk right. My writing was illegible. Something was majorly going wrong, and I was getting really, really sick, and I went to the ER, and they just sent me home.
Mm.
And I went to see an infectious disease doctor, and I got tested, and as soon as I walked in, he said, "You don't have Lyme." And what I noticed was when I was looking at all the symptoms, I had a lot of symptoms of Lyme disease. And ended up, I went in, and he was just, the infectious disease doctor was a real jerk. And I walked out that day, and then the next day I went and saw a Lyme specialist. And this was September 2013. And he tested me right away, and I had been on immunosuppressants, prednisone for different stuff, and antibiotics. So my Lyme testing did come back negative for IgM, but positive for IgG for past or chronic. And I also tested for Bartonella, Anaplasma, and Mycoplasma. Tested positive. So I did have 3 of the co-infections. And he started me on treatments in December, but before I started treatments, he started me on low-dose Naltrexone in October of 2013. And I started first at, I guess it was 3 or 4.5 mgs, and that ended up being too high, and I reacted very severely to it. So it ended up having to go down to 0.5 mgs, and I found out the reason why I wasn't responding so well to LDN is because, one, dealing with the chronic Lyme disease and co-infections, and also I also had systemic candida, for which I was tested for and I was positive, and also for parasites as well. So I found right off the bat that if you have underlying issues, health issues going on, and you jump right into a higher dose of LDN, at least for me, it really wreaked havoc on my body. So until those other issues had to be resolved, LDN did not work as well. So I went back down to 0.5 mgs of LDN, and then in a year's time worked my way up to 3 mgs as the other health issues started to resolve.
Mm-hmm. And how old were you initially when all this started?
I'm sorry, what was that?
How old were you initially?
I was 23 when everything
23.
started.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. You really have had some journey there. So if we were to say, at that point, just before starting LDN, if you had to rate your quality of life on a score of 1 to 10, and 10 being the best, what would it have been?
It was about a 1.
Okay. Could you describe to us what a typical day for you at that time would have been like?
Just constant pain, fatigue, sickness. It was just really, really bad. It was really bad.
Were you able to go out, do anything?
Barely. I ended up where, once I started the Lyme treatments and all that, it ended up that I had to cease working by the end of the year because things had gotten so bad.
Mm-hmm. And how easy was it to get your prescription for LDN? You said that the doctor prescribed it. Was it easy to get that prescription filled?
Yes, because the Lyme doctor and all of his other patients said they were dealing with autoimmune diseases or whatnot. He was starting them on it to see how they would do. So that was a medication he was familiar with, and he prescribed it quickly for me to try.
Okay. So all the issues you had when you first started, which a lot of people do, as you indicated there, if you have other ongoing conditions. So when you finally got everything, the candida and everything under control, and you started LDN at a very, very low dose, did you notice any vivid dreams or sleep disturbance or anything of that nature?
I had vivid dreams for the first week. And then that was it. The only other issues I had too, which I actually still do, is I have adrenal issues and I have night terrors. So my cortisol goes high at night. So I have to take LDN at an earlier time, like 6, 7 o'clock. I can't take it right before bedtime. If I take it then, I don't sleep at all. Mm-hmm. So because my cortisol shoots up really high at night, I have to take it earlier in the evening.
Okay. And how long did it take before you started to notice that LDN was doing something for you?
I noticed the first week. I started to get dizzy, and I couldn't figure out what was going on. And already in the first week, I was on blood pressure medication for the kidney failure, and it had already started to drop my blood pressure. So that was already within the first week of taking it. Mm. And I already had after the first week, I already had decreased my blood pressure medication. And
then what was the next thing you noticed? Can you remember?
It It actually, it helped with my IBS issues. It helped to resolve that. It definitely cleared them up. I also got off of my, I was taking allergy meds. I was taking Singulair and 2 inhalers. I got off those meds completely. That was one of the perks that I noticed, was that it completely resolved all my allergy issues. So I don't take any allergy meds now or inhalers or anything, except for maybe a rare occasion where it's a really bad ozone level day. But it cleared my allergies up completely, which I was shocked. That probably happened within the first 2-3 months. I guess I noticed that I was on LDN.
Mm-hmm. And what about your pain levels?
The pain levels, when I first started taking LDN, shot up higher first 2 weeks, and then the pain went away. So now I can actually tell the difference between what is my autoimmune pain and what is actually injury pain, which before I just had pain. I had pain 24/7. I had a hard time sleeping because I was just in pain 24/7, and LDN had taken away my autoimmune pain completely, which was great. That was about two weeks on it. After it flared at first, the pain subsided, and it has been great.
Mm-hmm. And if you had to score your quality of life now on that scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the best, what would it be now? Now
I would say it should be higher, but unfortunately I'm still dealing with the Lyme disease and co-infections, and they're still wreaking havoc. So I'd say my quality right now is probably only about a 5, only because of that. And it's only because of having that so long, and it's done so much damage to my body in other ways that I'm still trying to work out the damage, all that the Lyme has done. That's still what I'm dealing with. I went over 14 years undiagnosed and untreated, so there's a lot of other issues that still have to be worked out dealing with that aspect of it.
Mm-hmm. And what's a typical day for you like now?
I still can't do a whole lot. I'm still going through treatments for Lyme disease, so that's part of what's still tough yet, is that it's still dealing with the Lyme. But the LDN has done so much where it's afforded me to get off of 90% of my medications. It really has done so much in that aspect where, I mean, I've gotten off so many medications, and I've also lost over 30 pounds on it too as well. So I was overweight since I had gotten sick in 99, and it actually has enabled me to lose the weight and keep it off as well. So it's done a lot of good. If it hadn't been for the LDN, I don't know where I would be right now without it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, what would you say to other people who are thinking of trying Lyme disease?
What's that?
What would you say to other people who are thinking of trying Lyme disease? Listen to me. People who are thinking of trying LDN for Lyme disease and Ankylosing Spondylitis, Hashimoto's and allergies, what would you say to them?
It definitely. I would recommend, and I know it's not for everybody, and everybody reacts differently, and some people don't benefit from it at all. But it's a great medication where you have virtually no side effects. It can help in so many ways, and it is definitely worth trying. It's worth a try. There's so many of my friends that are taking biologics right now, and that's what my doctor wanted to put me on, was on Remicade, and I opted to do LDN instead, and I'm glad I did. I'd rather do something that's going to regulate my immune system rather than suppress it and make it weaker. And also with the Lyme, that'd be and make it worse as well. But it's definitely something worth trying. Again, if you have underlying health issues, the LDN I found will bring them to the surface. And a lot of people at first may think that, oh, the LDN's not working, the LDN's making me sick. It's not necessarily the LDN doing that. It's just making you aware of other underlying issues that you didn't know you had. And that's what you then have to resolve. And then when you resolve them, then the LDN works so much better.
Mm-hmm. Wow, what an amazing story. Thank you very much for sharing it with us.
No problem. Thank you very much.